Ladies and gentlemen, I figured it'd be an easy day. I figured Friday, unprotected talk. We would just breeze through the show. And I wake up and there he did it again. This crazy, dictatorial, narcissistic, anti-American maniac has just threatened all of Congress, including most of the Democrat Party that's sane, that if they should dare put sanctions on Iran, he will veto the bill. And take a guess who is standing alongside him, going amen with this dictator. None other than the reincarnation of King George III, and that would be Cameron. How do you feel living in America and having a British prime minister dictating policy to this nation? How do you feel about that? I don't feel very good about it. President Obama, joined by British dictator King David Cameron III, sharply warned Congress today, don't you dare pursue new sanctions on Iran or I will veto them. Listen to the soundbite. You're not going to believe what you're about to hear.
Now, if Iran cannot provide us the kind of assurances that would lead myself and David Cameron and others to conclude that they are not obtaining a nuclear weapon, then we're going to have to explore other options, and I will be the first one to come to Congress and say we need to tighten the screws, and Congress needs to show patience. With respect to the veto, I will veto a bill that comes to my desk, and I will make this argument to the American people as to why I'm doing so. And I respectfully request them to hold off for a few months to see if we have the possibility of solving a big problem without resorting potentially to war.
I have a question for you. Does anyone listening to this show believe that Obama is not owned lock, stock, and barrel by Iran? Why does Obama insist that Iran can be trusted? Even one of the leading Democrats, Senator Bob Menendez, Democrat in New Jersey, have said, in an argument, by the way, at a Democratic summit yesterday, the New York Times is reporting that Menendez got into a sharp exchange with dictator Obama, arguing that if Obama waited as he wants to, sanctions will not be able to be imposed quickly enough if the talks collapse. Do you know what I'm talking about? Iran is a terrorist sponsoring nation. Iran is the #1 state sponsor of ISIS. Do you understand what's at stake here? Do you comprehend that your president has told Congress to drop dead, including Democrats who have a conscience? And he's told Congress, drop dead, we're not putting sanctions on them. If you put sanctions on them to stop their nuclear program, I'll veto them because I'm God. And who's standing next to him? King George III. We're back where we started from before the American Revolution. Only now it's worse. When the British ran America, they had an American stooge. Now the American dictator has a British stooge. You know, if you look at history, this is sort of when Hitler took, let's say, Czechoslovakia. Say, you know what? If he takes one more country, then we're going to impose sanctions on Germany. And if Congress dares impose sanctions on Germany now, I will go and veto that. Because Mr. Hitler and I understand each other. This is exactly like that. So then Hitler takes another country, and the cowards get up, the appeasers, and they say, if Congress dares put sanctions on Hitler, we're going to veto it because we're working with Hitler. And he's a reputable man. He's a good man. All those mullahs in Iran who say they're going to wipe Israel off the map. All the Muslims in Iran who say they're going to wipe the U.S., the big devil, off the map. They don't really mean it. They don't say what they mean. They're not Muslims. They've hijacked the Islamic religion. The real Muslims are somewhere, but we don't know where they are. We're looking for a few of them. Maybe I'm the only one who understands what's going on. On my own show. Certainly not the only one in the world who understands what Obama's doing here. Remember, the major state sponsor of terrorism in the world is Iran. Look at America. You know, many of us sponsor wounded warriors, don't we? We see those heartbreaking TV ads of soldiers with arms or legs, brain damaged. Do you know who planted those IEDs? Obama's new pals. The Iranians were behind it. Do you have any idea what's going on here? That Cameron and Obama are now stooges of the mullahs of Iran, giving them enough time to develop a nuclear weapon, where it will then be too late to stop them. You say, well, why shouldn't they have a nuclear weapon? Everyone else does. Why shouldn't Iran have one? Israel does. That's what I'm going to hear next. Well, let me explain something to you. I haven't heard Israel say they're going to wipe Iran off the map. I haven't heard Israel say they're going to wipe a nation or a people off the map. I haven't heard Israel say they're going to commit genocide, but I've heard that from Iran for about 10 years now. We know what Iran will do if it gets a nuclear weapon because they've told us what they're going to do. This is not an ordinary nation. It's a fanatical Islamic nation. Isn't it called the Islamic Republic of Iran? If I'm not mistaken. Somehow Obama thinks that's a good thing, but the Jewish state of Israel is a bad thing. So you have to ask yourself, why does Obama want Iran to get the nuclear weapon? You say, well, how do you know he wants that? He said he didn't. Let me explain something. I've studied this man's behavior for all the years he's been in office, and here's what he does. He's an extremist. He's an activist. What he does is he's using a technique known as direct action. The radical left uses direct action, which is they make their policies a fait accompli. So the opposition is nullified before they can even respond. For example, he violated the Constitution by flooding America with illegal aliens over the summer. What happened? Nothing. They're here. They're near. They're everywhere. The illiterates, who do not even read or write Spanish, he flooded America with them. Many of them were diseased. That's why we had TB breaking out in Lynn, Massachusetts. That's where the killer flu is coming from. And if you don't believe me, then don't listen to the CDC. Investigate for yourself how many children have become paralyzed or have died from this virulent flu strain and this virus that was brought in with these so-called Obama's kids on the trains this summer from Mexico, Guatemala, and Honduras. So what he did there was he said, okay, yeah, right, work it out because I'm doing it anyway. Now, with regard to Iran and the bomb, he wants them to have the bombs. He's saying delay on the sanctions and we'll talk to them and blah, blah, blah. Then we'll come back to you. Meanwhile, they'll have the bomb and they'll say, oh, well, now we can't stop them. The cat is out of the bag. This is what he's doing. So that goes to the question of why does he want Iran to have the bomb if they're so bad? Now, all you liberals on the Upper East Side of New York don't care because you know that the president's so smart that he must have a secret plan for Iran getting the bomb. And the answer is Israel. It always comes back to Israel and the Jews. Israel is the bad boy to Obama and the sorority girls who are anti-Semitic. The sorority girls around Obama are the most anti-Semitic pack of sorority queens I've ever seen in my life. And they get away with it in the most unimaginable manner. So why does Obama want Iran to have a nuclear bomb? Nuclear weapon, whatever you want to say. Once Iran has the bomb, he can blackmail Israel into giving up Judea and Samaria for a Palestinian state. This is one of his number one agenda items that's been on his mind from the day he left Punahou High School. It's one of the radical leftist dreams is to cut Israel in half and make it indefensible, but more than that, destroy it as a Jewish state. Just as he's destroying this nation as a fundamentally Christian nation, turning it into a hodgepodge, flooding us with as many Muslims, for example, as he can possibly squeeze in a shorter period of time, he would like to see Israel turned into something other than a Jewish state and turning it into an indefensible nation and destroying Israel as an entity altogether. It will just disappear as a country. That's the hard reality. I mean, this is the existential reality of what's happening over there. Now, you could argue maybe Israel never should have been created. You can go all the way back if you want. But Israel has been created. Israel's on the ground. They've turned a desert into a thriving nation, while around them, with rare exception, there's nothing but hatred, murder, and retrograde insanity. Ask yourself why, when the Arabs had that land, they did nothing with it. What, the colonialists, the evil whites who came from Europe were so evil that they built a nation? They're evil for building a nation? Well, if you're on the left in America, you think this nation is evil because it's a civilization. What would you argue? We should not be a civilization? We should degenerate back to some tribal level? Well, it's not going to happen. But nevertheless, let's not get too esoteric. So that's the goal of the New World Order. And they do not want any nations that are built upon a single religion, for example. Unless, of course, they're Muslim. They can do as they wish. But as far as anyone in the sphere of the United States, no Jewish state, polyglot state, And so follow my logic. He wants Iran to have the bomb, which is why he threatened Congress with a veto today. And once Iran has the bomb, he'll blackmail Israel into giving up Judea and Samaria for a so-called Palestinian state. That's my opinion. He wants Iran to have the bomb. Now you know the whole story. At least that's one man's opinion. I'm just sitting up here on the third floor window looking down and watching the world go by. That's my opinion.